Now remember, elasticity is kind of a generic concept in economics. We can talk about elasticities of a whole lot of different things. For example, you could think about the response of your income to a change in the number of years of education. And again, in elasticity, we put that in percentage terms, the percent change in your income for a percent change in the number of years of education. That would be the elasticity of your income to education. Some of the other elasticities that we're going to talk about in this course include the cross-price elasticity of demand, and the cross-price elasticity of demand is going to be the percent change in the quantity demanded of one good over the percent change in the price of another good. And here the sign really matters. So if the price of one good, say, falls, and your demand for the other good falls, that suggests that, this is negative, this becomes a positive sign, and this means that those goods are substitutes. And the example that I used in class was when the price of the DVD player fell, the demand or the quantity demanded of VCRs fell. They are substitutes. And the same thing would happen on the way up. If the price of a good increases and the demand for the other good increases, it says they're substitutes. So if they really raise the price of tangerines and the quantity demanded of oranges goes up, and we can calculate that cross-price elasticity, that a 5% increase in the price of tangerines led to a, say, 4% increase in the quantity demanded of oranges, again, both moving in the same direction, that suggests they're substitutes. And then on the other hand, if they're negative, again, it's the percent change in the quantity of one good over the percent change in the price of the other good. Let's say if they drop the price of coffee, then a lot of people are going to be buying more cream because they like to drink their coffee with cream. So they drop the price of coffee, more coffee is consumed because we're moving along the demand curve of coffee to that lower price and a higher quantity, and then the complement is going to, the demand for that complement is going to increase. So the quantity demanded for that complement is going to increase. We're drinking more coffee. That means we also are going to be buying more cream. And again, we can calculate this. If a 10% drop in the price of coffee leads to a 5% increase in the quantity of cream consumed, that's a positive, that's a negative number. This is down, this is up. We have a negative elasticity, and this suggests that those items are complements. And then there are two other kinds of elasticities that we're just going to briefly discuss. The first is the income elasticity of demand. And so the income elasticity of demand is the percent change in the quantity demanded over the percent change in income. And here that we go back to the issue of 1 being a very important number in terms of elasticity. Normal goods are going to have a positive elasticity of income. If your income goes up, you're going to consume more of the good, and so this will have a positive sign. And if your income goes down, then you're going to consume less of the good. And so, again, the overall elasticity will have a positive sign. And so if the elasticity is greater than 0, then we call it a normal good. And there are two kinds of normal goods, necessities and luxuries. So a necessity is going to have an elasticity greater than 0, but also it's going to be an elasticity that is less than 1. And so the idea being that if your income goes up by 5%, you're not necessarily going to consume 5% more food. And if your income goes down by 5%, you're not necessarily going to consume 5% less food. Food is a necessity, and its consumption isn't going to be be that responsive to your income. It'll be somewhat responsive to your income, but not that much. A luxury, on the other hand, will have an elasticity of greater than 1. And the idea is that if you had a 10% drop on your income, you may cut back your vacations completely. A huge response in terms of the percentage change in your consumption of vacations over a percent change in your income. And then finally, if elasticity is less than 0, if elasticity is actually a negative number, we call that an inferior good. That if your income goes down, you actually consume more of the item. And this might be something like peanut butter. If people are substituting away from, say, beef and chicken to peanut butter as their income goes down, then peanut butter would have a negative elasticity of income as the quantity consumed goes up as their income goes down. And then they get a raise or get their job back, they actually may cut back on peanut butter and start buying steak or chicken again. And so again, so the income would go up, the quantity demanded of the good would go down, the elasticity would be less than 0, and we would call that an inferior good. And then the final kind of elasticity we're going to talk about is price elasticity of supply. As you know, supply curves slope up. And so the greater the price, the more producers or sellers are going to want to supply. But the question that elasticity answers is how much. And it's the exact same equation. It's the percent change in quantity over the percent change in price is the elasticity of supply. And because we know that supply curves slope up, these are both going to be moving in the same direction. If the price goes down, the quantity supplied is going to go down. If the price goes up, the quantity supplied is going to go up. So you'd either have a positive over a positive or a negative over a negative. Either way, the elasticity itself would be a positive number. And again, it would be a number between 0 and infinity. And we actually can think of some items that would actually have a 0 elasticity of supply. One example is the paintings by Vincent van Gogh. When Vincent van Gogh died, having painted his last painting, they were selling for very, very little. Tragic how little money they were selling for and how impoverished Vincent van Gogh was. Now they sell for hundreds of millions of dollars, but just because the price of Vincent van Gogh paintings has increased, the quantity supplied has not increased at all. The elasticity of supply is 0. And then if it was a completely horizontal line, the elasticity of supply would be infinity. And in between, the steeper the curve, the less elastic, the less the supply response is going to be to a change in price. And a couple of things that affect the elasticity of supply. One is the availability of inputs. So if prices went up a lot for a particular good, obviously you'd want to sell more and you'd like to make more. But if you aren't able to get the inputs that you need to make it, then that's going to constrain the supply, the ability of or your response to the increase in price. And then the other thing is time. Generally, as time goes on, elasticity is greater. You have a better ability to respond. So if the price of gasoline goes up a lot, you can't drill an oil well overnight. And so the supply response is not going to be immediate. But if gas prices stay high long enough, it will lead to more exploration and a greater supply response in terms of, so the elasticity will be greater in the long run than in the short run. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your weekend.